Time, please. Hi, good afternoon, and welcome. What I like most about this competition is being able to try new things, to experiment, and to push the boundaries of specialty coffee. Now, 4 years ago, I started working with a producer called Café Granja La Esperanza. And they own 5 farms in the Cauca Valley in the west part of Colombia. And they also like to try new things. And they experiment with everything. They grow many different varieties. They try new processing methods, drying methods, fermentation styles, and they trace everything along the way. And today, we're going to taste their latest experiment. Now, we're going to start with the espressos, followed by the milk drinks, and we're going to finish with my signature drink. And for this, I have a little preparation to do before we can start. I'm going to stir a lavender syrup with the zest of this odd-looking fruit called the Buddha hand. And this has flavors of lemon, lime, and bergamot. I'm just going to turn this on, and I'll explain this part later. And the coffee I'm using today is from one of Café Granja's farms called Cerro Azul. This beautiful farm located between 2 mountain peaks at an altitude of 1,960 meters above sea level, where the coffee trees get a large amount of sun during the day, followed by a beautiful fog from the evening into the late morning. At this high altitude gives the coffee a bright acidity, and a long period of fog makes for a cooler temperature and a higher humidity, causing slow maturation of the cherries, meaning they produce more sugars, giving this coffee its intense sweetness. For my espresso, this means it's high in acidity, balanced by high sweetness, and a low to medium bitterness. Cerro Azul by itself is a pretty amazing environment for producing a great tasting coffee. But Café Granja saw bigger potential for this farm. And in 2008, they were the first ones to bring geisha trees from Panama back to Colombia to experiment with. As we all know, geisha is a very fragile variety, has low yield, needs perfect conditions, and requires a lot of care. But still, Café Granja decided to use this variety because of its distinctive flavor notes. It's a bit of a risk, but it paid off. And it's what gives my espresso today its complexity. I'm using 50 grams of coffee to produce 20 grams of coffee to produce 50 grams of espresso. And they will have a medium weight, a silky texture, and a beautiful, sweet, lingering finish. I want to ask you to stir the espresso 6 times before drinking so they can cool down slightly and develop more flavor clarity. And you can put your spoons in the white cups afterwards. So, judges, what you're going to taste is orange blossom, passion fruit, and cantaloupe melon. So please enjoy. Here you go. Here you go. Here you go.
Okay, let me hear you for the espresso course.
Okay, so Lex has started off today. He's served his espressos now as a nice little intro, doing a little bit of prep for his signature drink, introducing his coffee from geisha, looks like from Colombia, and just kind of really connecting to the judges and pretty much introducing everything that he's doing so far.
I think it's amazing how much content there was delivered in such a relaxed way. You know, it feels super gentle and time is just rolling on.
Yeah, he seems really relaxed, and it actually seems really comfortable. If you were standing up there, it'd be very comfortable to listen to him talking. And we're joined here today by Dylan, who's his coach. Do you have anything to say today?
Yeah, hi. Well, yeah, look, I think I'm the nervous one here. Yeah, it's funny. Once he's up there, it just goes and it's super smooth and plays off.
So now we have this beautiful geisha variety growing in one of the most perfect spots in the world. And this will be a good moment to sit back and relax, right? Not for Koffie Karanga. They wanted to see if they could get even more flavors out of their coffee. Now 2 years ago, they had experimented with something they called pre-fermentation on one of their coffees. And this gave them a syrupy sweetness that reminded them of a cognac. And they called the process XO. And now they've done the same experiment on a small amount of the geisha from Cerro Azul. So today, we're drinking geisha XO. And what they did is this. Before taking it to the dryer, they fermented the coffee in cherry for 48 hours, straight after picking. And this part is tricky. The extended fermentation time means alcohol starts to form. So to prevent it from turning sour, all of the cherries that were used had to have a sugar content of exactly 18-degree Brix. And all of the defects had to be removed, leaving a perfect but small mass of cherries. The fermentation was also carefully monitored, keeping the temperature below 25 degrees Celsius, and then the cherries were dried in a mechanical dryer for 48 hours. Now this XO process with this specific coffee resulted in those beautiful tropical notes you just tasted in the espresso. And for my milk course, I'm using a ratio of 1 part espresso to 3 parts milk. And for my shots, I'm using 20 grams in and 38 grams out. And the milk I'm using is from a small dairy farm just outside of Amsterdam. On a clear day, you can probably even see the cows from here. And they produce the creamiest milk I ever tasted. Now this milk has a fat content of 4.4% and by itself is already fantastic. But it also really complements the espresso like no other milk. And you're gonna taste mango, and it turns into banana and then milk chocolate in the finish. There you go. Enjoy.
I like the focus on simplicity in this milk drink. It's a very traditional sounding cappuccino, just with a real focus on better ingredient, better quality milk. Local, it's always fun.
We've got a lot of tropical fruit notes in competition today in general, and it's been pretty interesting to hear all of the kind of ties to the origin and where the flavors are coming from and everything. So he seems like he's really banking on the simplicity of just you know, putting it out there. It doesn't need to be overly complicated. It just needs to be really good.
I also think across the finals we've seen lots of geishas, Ethiopian coffees with what we normally associate with floral notes, but actually fruit has been leading, sweetness has been leading in all the coffee descriptions.
And the milk beverage ratio is about 1 to 3, so I think how to balance the acidity of espresso with the sweetness of milk is very important.
Yes, ladies, put your hands together.
Yeah, actually geisha wasn't necessarily all we were looking for, just a great coffee, and the process really transformed it, and then with milk it was just great straight away, so we didn't have to do much in the end.
And when you're done tasting the milk drink, please turn over the cards in front of you and have a look at the information about the signature drink I'm going to be serving next.
Sometimes that's the best way it happens. I would say we've had actually, I believe, 3 geishas, actually 2 geishas, 1 geisha sidra blend, and we've had 2 Ethiopians and 1 Costa Rica today in the finals. It's been a good mix of countries, origins, and varieties in the finals today, which is fantastic.
And that's exactly what we want from this competition, right? To show that the diversity of coffee, diversity of approaches.
Let's see if he's going to deliver some lines shortly.
For my signature shots, I'm using the same ratio as for the espressos. 20 in and 50 out. And I've used the same roast profile for all of the coffees I made today. I roasted for 8.5 minutes to an end temperature of 200 degrees Celsius with a roast development time of 1 minute and 20 to maximize sweetness and to balance out that bright acidity. For the final course, I wanted to experiment, using the XO process and the geisha variety as inspiration to push the boundaries of the coffees we tasted today even further. Now, the XO process required coffee cherries with a sugar content of 18-degree Brix. And when I went to the farm and when I tasted these cherries, they had these beautiful sweet and soft notes of tropical fruit. And they reminded me so much of fresh lychee. A lychee is also great to work with as a signature drink ingredient. It has various subtle notes complementing the espresso without overpowering the flavor of the drink. Now, the fermentation in the XO process is the thing that really transforms the flavor of the coffee. And I wanted to capture some of that magic in my signature drink as well. So, I fermented the lychee using water kefir, which is a symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast, similar to kombucha. I blended and filtered fresh lychees and I fermented them with the kefir for 22 hours, keeping the temperature below 18 degrees Celsius. And I chilled it afterwards to prevent alcohol from being formed. I'm just going to filter out this kefir, and of this ferment I'm going to use 24 grams. Now, the lactic acid formed during fermentation is going to give the signature drink more body and the lychee more acidity to balance out the sweetness of my next ingredient. With my second ingredient, I wanted to highlight more of those typical bright and floral notes often found in the geisha variety. Over here, I found that the Buddha's hand and lavender are great representations of these. Over here, I have a lavender syrup that I slow boiled for 20 hours using 10 grams of dried lavender flower and equal parts of cane sugar and filtered water. And I've infused it with half a gram of the Buddha's hand zest by stirring it at high speed using this magnetic mixer. I'm just going to filter out this zest, and I'm going to use 6 grams of this infusion for my signature drink. And this combination is going to transform the flavors of the other ingredients. Finally, I'm adding the espressos, and I'm going to bring this all together using a nitrogen cartridge and this siphon. This is going to combine all the ingredients, and it's going to give the drink a beautiful creamy mouthfeel. And what I've created here is 2 new flavors, cinnamon and blood orange. I'm going to serve you this drink at 30 degrees Celsius, because at this temperature the flavors will be most pronounced. In the aroma, you're going to get cinnamon. And then before taking your first sip, I'm going to ask you to swirl the glass twice. And in the first sip, you'll taste more of that cinnamon, followed by a little bit of that lavender from the syrup. In the second sip, you'll taste blood orange. And then the cinnamon comes back in the finish. And today, we tasted a coffee that was produced only for this competition. It's the first time this farmer has made this, and they made only 30 kilos. It's an experimental coffee with the sole purpose of discovering new flavors that show us what specialty coffee can be. It's coffees like these that will still give me goosebumps when I drink an espresso, and why I still talk about coffee with the same enthusiasm as I did 10 years ago. These coffees are the very reason I'm standing here today. Please enjoy my last course, and I want to thank you very much for joining me here on stage. Time.
Yeah.